excited to always excited to have a chance to train new coaches and get that exposure. And I've been doing this for a very long time. And always, again, thrilled to meet new people, thrilled to follow up with the people that I've helped certify and see how they're doing, and certainly run into them occasionally at the summer games. And it's always fun. I've been involved with Special Olympics since 1987. Grew up in Cincinnati, got out of college. My first job out of college, I saw a note on a bulletin board at the office saying, "Hey, Special Olympics volunteers needed." And I'd never been involved with Special Olympics before, but I'd been blessed and thought, let me go check this out and be part of this, and just absolutely fell in love with it. And so since '87, I've been doing it, and I've done it in Cincinnati and in Cleveland, in Kansas City, and I've been in Charlotte since 2000. And so I've been part of the program here since then. I'm the Mecklenburg County track coach, and I've been doing that since 2001, and part of the sports development team since 2004. So again, worked with Andrea for a very long time, and she's a great person to have as part of the Special Olympics team, and does a wonderful job through all this. So I'm looking forward to hearing stories from you. I'm sure some of you are probably certified in other sports, and either, as Andrea mentioned, recertification here, or being certified first time for a track coach. But I'd love to hear stories when I go through things about the kind of things you run into, because it makes it more fun for people to understand that there are other things that happen and why we do some of these things. So please jump in at any time. Certainly any questions, jump in at any time or use the chat. I'm happy to answer them as we go through. And again, looking forward to getting through this. Over the years, and if you've been involved in other sports, you've met a lot of great athletes and a lot of great parents and caregivers. And, I've watched athletes grow up. It started out at a very young age in the program, and then watch them go on and become an adult and just have a wonderful time. So all this is great stuff. And again, appreciate everybody joining in. As a slide says, and I'm not big on reading slides. You guys are all good at that. But I will say, we put this together so there would be a common approach to coaching, and a knowledge of the rules and the techniques and training methods and everything else. And, this is important for us to, again, try to give everybody a basic understanding. Many of you may have been involved with track programs in your life, and certainly understand a lot of things I'm going to go over tonight. So I'm going to talk about a lot of the general preparation for the program, talk about some of the specific techniques and technical things that you need to do inside the program, and just some of the oddities that we experience. So great to have you again. I will talk oops, that's what happens when you hit the wrong button. Andrea talked about the sports guidelines that are on the web. I'm going to pop out of this, and I'm going to pop onto the web just to give you a quick look. Under the website of sonc.net, you can find specific training guidelines. Under Get Involved, you will see Become a Coach. Under Become a Coach, you can find coaching resources. And again, North Carolina has a wonderful website of resources. And here you can see specifics under athletics. And this is just a preview. You guys, when you get a chance, go check this out. Look into this. Any state can be involved. We have South Carolina or Tennessee coaches on here. Please, if you guys have something similar to this in your state, great. If not, feel free to check this out. But under each one of these, there's just wonderful guidelines that can really help your program, or help you with your program, experience a lot of things. And they'll give you all the specifics about things that you need. I'm not going to go through these, just an exposure to the kind of resources that are available. You don't have to invent or anything or everything. All you've got to do is just find the resources that help you get to that. So that's all really good stuff. And so just an exposure to the website. And let me pop this back. All right. So again, just wanted to plug that. Andrea talked about it too. So on the athletics overview, that as Andrea mentioned, it's a standard 8 weeks training program. That's the minimum. Certainly go longer than that if your schedules and weather permits. And as the point says, there's nothing that keeps you from training year round, but specific equipment's needed for training and for competing. Obviously, stopwatches, batons, softballs, coach's tape, and I'll explain what that is and what that means later. Tennis balls, a shot put, a mini jab, starter's pistol, all things that are important for you to give exposure to your athletes, and then actually as part of the training of your athletes that will be involved. So make sure that you are working through those things and getting everyone exposed. The summer games for North Carolina's track this year, athletics, track and field, is June 2nd through June 4th up in the Raleigh area. Last I understand, the location has not been completely defined yet or identified yet. There's a couple that they're looking at. St. Augustine is where we've been the last handful of years, and I understand that NC State is also being considered. But anyway, all things you need to know and need to have as part of your program. And your first time in, your county sports director should be able to supply you with all these things or all the needs you have to move forward. Inside of Special Olympics, we've got 3 different divisions or categories for the athletes. And as you can see, it's traditional, lead up, and developmental. And it's really based on the skill sets of the athletes. The traditional are more, as it says, more along the lines of what you'd see in a high school, college meet. Lead up are for those athletes that may not have the skill set to do the complete traditional event. And then the developmental is for the people that, are even pre lead up and are wanting to compete, but don't have the skills to do, a 25-meter walk or a 50-meter dash and so on and so forth. The key point that you guys need to understand and recognize and remember, athletes cannot cross these categories. So meaning if they are in one event in traditional, they cannot do something in the lead up or developmental, and vice versa. So, there's always a lot of confusion about athletes wanting to run the 100-meter dash, but also do a softball throw. Cannot cross categories. So just keep that in mind as you are identifying events for your athletes. They have to remain in one specific category, and you'll get all the information about what these different categories are. Let's see. These are the basic events that we offer at the state level for North Carolina. Other states may have different events because this is a subset of what SO Inc. Has or can compete in. So this is what we do. But again, Tennessee and or South Carolina may include other events that we currently do not. Athletic events, generally and I'm going to talk again high level about things, when an athlete gets to the summer games or also mirrored in the local games, they can compete in 3 individual events and 1 relay event. So as you're scheduling your athletes for competition, keep in mind that they can do, and it can be 3 running events and a relay. It can be a combination of field events, shot put, and a couple running events or running long jump. Mini jabs also, but so athletes at most it'll meet 3 individual, 1 relay. Athletes can also compete in the pentathlon, and those are the events, the 5 events that are scored in a pentathlon. In the old days in North Carolina, the pentathletes at the summer games used to get a medal for each one of the events that they competed in. So certainly athletes wanted to compete in the pentathlon because they had the possibility of getting 6 total medals, 1 each for the individual events and then the overall score. But we've since changed that now the scoring all centers around where you finish in the total in the pentathlete. But again, opportunities for higher performing athletes to be able to have a great time and participate. Divisioning. So the divisioning, excuse me, drink of water. All right. So the divisioning, the heats are broken the meets are broken into heats. And so many athletes compete in each heat. And the athletes are division based on their skill set against other athletes with similar skills. And that's, you want to keep it as competitive, have athletes to be as competitive as possible, that they can be against other athletes of their own skill set. So, the divisioning is based on age, gender, and, the scoring being the distance that they may be throwing a softball, tennis ball, shot put, or their times in running distances. One of the things that's important, and I'll mention this again, the heats are defined at the summer games and actually the local games too, state and local games, based on the times and distances that the coaches put in. So it's incumbent on you as a coach to make sure you're as accurate as you possibly can be on turning in the times for athletes that are competing. I've seen it before at state games where a coach may have misentered an athlete's time in 100 meter, and I see 2 athletes running a 100-meter dash, and the first athlete finishes and the second athlete's only about the 50-meter mark. So, there's something not quite right about the times that were put in. But again, the state people and the local people take all the times and distances we submit as coaches, and that's how we division people so that, they have an opportunity to be in the same kind of class as other people. And again, last point is athletes can't cross the categories when they're competing. All right. Choosing events for your athletes. So, it's always an interesting thing when you first get new athletes out, because generally my experience has been with parents, they certainly want their athletes to be able to perform at the highest level. Excuse me. And they suggest that an athlete may be best suited for a 100-meter, 200-meter, 400-meter dash, and so on. And they may absolutely be correct. But once you go through a practice or two, you as a coach will be able to determine what is the best category / event for your athletes. And, these are guidelines that we have put out to help people try to identify what an athlete may be qualified for in doing. And again, we'll make sure that this presentation is available to you. You can take these points back to you. But again, if an athlete is taking such a long time in the 100-meter dash, over 36 seconds, it's probably not a good event for them. And so you may want to look at moving them into the 100-meter walk, or moving them down into the lead up category where they're doing a 50-meter dash and so on. But again, that's another requirement of your coaching, is to take an assessment of your athletes so that you understand where they're best suited to compete fairly with other people of the same skill set. So, just some more guidelines to that on, again, this will be available for you to take a look, but more guidelines on just different events and timings that may give you some idea of where an athlete may be best suited to compete. Training rosters. Training roster is a key part in North Carolina, and it's again, up to the coach and a requirement of the coach to identify and state and turn in the training rosters to the local and state offices. North Carolina requires that all athletes be on a training roster and be recognized at, again, the local and state level, so they can be included in, as we said, unified partners or in the local and state game. So again, things that are required by the coach to make sure you're up to date on. Worst thing you want to have happen is train an athlete all spring, and when it's time for the summer games, have to tell them that they are not eligible to participate in the summer games because you as a coach failed to put them on the roster that was turned into the state. So just again, guidelines, things you got to think about as a coach as you're putting your season together and going through it. Because what I have found, athletes will show up all throughout the season to become part of your program. And so it's not like everybody's going to show up on day one and that's all you're going to have, because the word will get out about what a wonderful coach you are, what a wonderful program you run. And other athletes, parents, caregivers will want to say, hey, I think this athlete should be part of the program. And so, people are showing up all the time and always welcome them in, even if they come in partway through the year. It's certainly great to have them become part of your program because they're going to come back next year and they're going to be there the entire year. And you'll be able to watch them grow and participate and train and get stronger and compete. So again, things that we go through. Your Bible, and this is incumbent and necessary, and I keep saying incumbent, but again, it's up to you as a coach. These are the medical forms. These are just examples, pictures of the medical forms that the athlete must have done and turned in to the local/state office to be able to compete. And the reason it's so important for you and the athlete is if there's ever an issue physically or mentally with your athlete while you're at a practice, while you're in an invitational, while you are at the summer games, these are the forms that you need to have with you at all times, because the EMS team is going to say, what can you tell me about this athlete? And so to me, this is the most important thing that you have to have with you anytime you are competing or participating in practice. As an example, a few years ago, at the summer games in North Carolina, it was an extremely hot weekend, and I had an athlete that experienced heat stroke and had to have medical attention and ended up taking him to the ER, but he was fine. He ended up being okay. But the first thing that the EMS team said to me was, what can you tell us about the athlete? And I was able to provide them with these forms that have been filled out by his caregiver, by his parents, and certainly assisted them with giving him the proper care and knowing what specific conditions he may have or drugs he may or she may currently be taking. But again, it's something that I went through and was, again, because I had the forms with me, it assisted in the medical attention that was given to my athlete. So again, I can't say with any more strength of how important this is, but you need to understand it and go with it, that in mind.
Hey,
Training.
Rick, I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you supposed
Yeah.
to be sharing your screen right now?
Yeah, are you guys not seeing it?
No, we can't see it.
Ah, well, that's no good. Well, that's interesting. Well, gosh, I've been going all this long and
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't even know that you had a PowerPoint. I just thought you were going with it.
oh no. So do you guys see this now?
Alright. Yes, there we go.
Well,
Thank you.
I apologize. And I guess when I jumped out and went to the website and came back, that it didn't carry forward. Well, thank you for bringing it up. Well, let me just step back a minute.
Yeah, we had some people in the chat asking about the forms you were just talking about.
Carolina. And then I also see that Sherry Bowers has joined us. She's from South Carolina. So we really appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over to Chuck, and we are going to talk about bowling and lots of fun. So take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Welcome everybody. I appreciate you guys spending some time with me today. I love talking about two things: Special Olympics.
Do we, yeah, we go. I was gonna say, do we crisscross into another room or?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
All right, so we're back. Okay. Anyway, and thanks for bringing up, gosh, shame on me. I didn't realize that the screen wasn't being shown. So let me jump back real quick to a couple things. Again, this is important. This is traditional lead up and development and events that you can't cross categories. That's important for you as a coach to know. We'll make this presentation available to everyone because it's important to have the specifics of that. Again, a lot of the other stuff I talked about are just learning points, guidelines about where to put athletes based on their times and distances in running and softball throw events. And then, of course, this is what I was just talking about, the medical forms, how important they are. And again, it's your Bible for the safety of your athletes if an issue is to come up. So,
excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
The physical exam that they already have a physical form, do they still have to fill out this physical form that you would like? Or does it matter as long as I have a physical form, they fill out the other health history?
if you've got a doctor's form, and Haley, correct me if I'm wrong, does that circumvent this, or do they need to fill this out with a physical from a doctor?
I think it's just a physical form. I haven't heard anything about these forms with Unified Track, so I think it's just the physical form since it's with the NCHSAA.
Yeah, again, if the forms coming from the doctor have indications of medical conditions, medications that are taking or whatever, it probably covers this, but let me make a note of that. We'll verify that.
Hi,
Yeah, absolutely.
this is Emily. I'm on staff with SONC. They have to have this specific form filled out. If
Okay.
they've already gone to the doctor recently and you send them the link to this, sometimes the doctors can fill it out based on the information that they have. But this is like an SOI requirement, so it does have to be our form that is filled out.
All right. Thank you, Emily.
Yep.
Anything else? Good question. We got it answered. All right. Training guidelines. Again, athletes need a medical assessment, must be on file. Again, must be in a coach's possession that expires every 3 years. And so athletes are required, required to have them. And you should work closely with your local program coordinator, because some of the medical forms may expire during your season. I went through this bad experience a couple of years ago where I had a number of athletes whose medicals expired during our training season and were not eligible to be able to go to the state games. And, it was a difficult comment for me to have to tell the parents and the athletes, I'm sorry, your medical form expired, but you're not eligible to participate at state level. So learn the hard way. And so, again, I don't want to learn that the hard way again. And so please keep that in mind. Work closely with your local program coordinator. Practices, know your athlete's abilities and medical conditions when you're practicing. So you can spot things. You'll see your athletes, you'll get to know them, you'll understand them. And so being in tune with them is certainly helpful to you, because some days they may come to practice and just not want to participate. And so, understanding how you can motivate them to be part of the program and to be part of the group and be part of the fun and part of the socialization and part of the training is a great insight into them if you can get that from learning their skills and abilities. And then again, be conscious of how far you may be able to take someone in training. And then certainly don't cross the line when doing that. But again, it's one of the things you'll learn going through the program, make your training progressive, regularity, overload, vary it, rest, balance, and specificity around the events. And, what we have done over the years in Charmec, Mecklenburg County is I've got a number of great assistant coaches that help. And, the track is a big place, right? And so you can run multiple things, multiple training events at one time, 50-meter dash on one side of the track and 100-meter dash on the other side of the track. So it's all good to keep that in mind. And again, one of the stories I tell about knowing your athlete's abilities. One of the athletes that I coached a few years ago, John Gray, was selected, to participate in the World Games. And he was running selected to run the half marathon. And so I was training John and making sure he was ready to go compete in Belfast. And he had to have a qualifying time in a sanctioned half marathon of less than 2 hours to be as his final selection criteria to be part of the USA team. And so John and I went down to run a half marathon down in South Carolina. And as always, as any athlete does, many athletes do, he started out the half marathon too fast, but he was doing great. And he was coming together and we were all, I was running with him and just talking through it, just making sure we get through the 12 plus miles, 13 plus miles, and make sure he was under 2 hours so he could get that final step to be able to be part of the USA team. And so we come to about the last mile and John's running out of gas. Again, he started out a little aggressively, but now he's running out of gas. And so I'm running next to him and I kind of got my hand on the small of his back and I'm kind of, pushing him along and saying, come on, John, we just got to get this done. Make sure we're under 2 hours. And, this will be great. Then we'll have this out of the way and we can just focus on training. And I'm talking to the people on the side of the road cheering him, saying, hey, John's trying to get into the, World Games for Special Olympics. He's got to do this and so on and so forth. And, we got maybe a quarter mile from the end and he looked at me and said, Coach, I haven't felt this way from the last time I had a seizure. Scared the heck out of me. Made me realize that I was losing track of John's limitations, focusing only on getting him across the finish line in a time that he would be able to get to the World Games. Nothing happened. He finished under 2 hours. He went to the World Games, won a silver medal in the half marathon of Belfast. But again, it was reinforcement to me to always be cognizant of your athlete's abilities. So, and their limitations, right? So again, the things you learn over the course of years training, you certainly want to pass on to as many people as you can. Training guidelines, always safety first, right? Keep your athletes hydrated. Key item is sportsmanship. We always want our athletes to compete and do the best they can, but also to be good sportsmen about it. So these are the things. Sportsmanship is one of the things that we talk a lot about in Mecklenburg County. I found when you are in need of people to assist you, if you need some help, because you've got a large number of athletes, or maybe some of your coaches are tied up or couldn't make it to that practice, family members, caregivers are always willing to assist with the training. So, whenever I've needed to or had to, I ask the people up in the stands, hey, you guys come down and give us a hand, and have never had anybody say no, and always have had plenty of additional help when needed. So keep that in mind. If you need help, people are there to assist. Start each practice with a warm-up, of course. In the sports resource guide, there's some great stretching moves in there, and I can tell you the warm-ups you can go through get the athletes ready. But one of the things I like to talk about, or one of the things I like to do when we warm up is to get everybody talking, right? It's a great time for some socialization between the athletes, and a lot of athletes know one another. And so they're always happy to spend time chatting, and and you can see how your athletes are doing. And as we talked about, assessing what level they are for the day. But again, great social interaction time, great friendship time to talk about things as you're loosening up, right? And get that positive attitude, positive mentality going, because you're gonna train them pretty hard when you get into the thing. So I'd like to use the warm up area as a time for socialization. We make announcements, by the coaches, or we also let the athletes know what's involved with the practice for that day. And then, if, again, I talked earlier, you always have new athletes coming in. It's a great time to introduce the new athletes into the program. And so introducing that. And again, a lot of times they already know them, but great way to get people moving. Again, starting a practice, we have the icebreakers and warm-ups talked about, setting expectations, announcements, and introducing new athletes. I think I've already said that. Look, I'm ahead of myself. So, all right, conducting practice, specific drills for each event. As I mentioned, the track is big. You can break it up into the different areas, and we share the track all over the place. In Meck County, normal practice during the season, I may have 50 athletes involved of all areas, or in all areas, traditional lead up and development. And so we try to minimize the standing around. And so while there has to be some while you're running different heats, so to speak, in practice, and the athletes run and then come back, walk back down to the starting line, but we have things going on concurrently. Keep your athletes moving, keep them involved, and use the whole track, right? Again, balance the training so that everybody participates, and you have people stationed at the start and finish line, and reinforce. That's part of what a good coach does, is reinforce form, reinforce good sportsmanship and socialization, and the efforts of what they're doing and how hard they're practicing, and understanding what they're capable of, and continuing to push their training. So excuse me. And to practice, we have a cool down. We bring everybody in at the end. We talk about the positive things that happened at the practice that day. We talk about who did some really extraordinary things or gave great efforts, and we'll call them out, and we'll repeat announcements, talk about what the athletes should be continuing to do, and make announcements about the next date in practice. But again, it's a final time for us to socialize and get everybody, continue to get everybody involved about what's going on. So we circle up at the end of each practice and talk about who did well and who worked hard, and give everybody great platitudes for what they're doing. So it's great to keep them involved and keep them connected. All right, so if you guys have all been on a track before, the standard track size is 400 meters in length. Sorry, let me back up. So everything we just talked about was kind of prepping, right, of what you're going to do to get the athletes going and what to do for a practice. Now let's talk about the specifics of a track and the events and the technical issues that you'll need to understand and train on and through. So again, standard track is 400 meters in length. Each local games and the summer games will have a staging area. So as they are running events, you'll need to bring your athletes to the staging area so that they can be placed in the heats with the other athletes that they're going to compete against in whatever it is, a run, a field event, a jump, a throw, a shot put. And then again, you'll hear this at the state games, you'll hear this at your local games. The athletes need to be at the staging areas generally 15 minutes prior to the start of their event. All races under 800 meters. So anything less than 800 meters, the athletes need to stay in their lane the entire time. Running outside of your lane and in any of those events could lead to a disqualification. So again, something to work on your athletes: 400 meters, 200 meters, 100 meters, 50, 25, 10-meter assisted walk. Everybody's got to stay in their lane the entire race from start to finish. Sounds easy. It isn't. So, but it's something through repeated practices that you can get your athletes to adhere to. And again, even going through lots of practices, and it isn't as easy as it sounds. So the lanes have staggered starts. And a staggered start is the inside lane on a 400-meter track. Lane 1 on a 400-meter track is 400 meters long if you stay in that lane the whole way around. Lane number 2 is 408 meters long if you stay in lane 2 the whole way around. Lane 3, 416 meters. Each lane on a standard track that you move out from lane 1 is 8 meters longer as you step out. To compensate for that, so that each athlete is only running the distance assigned to the race, they have staggered starts. So in the 400-meter dash, lane 1 will start in its lane on lane 1. Lane 2 will be 8 meters ahead of that individual in their lane. Lane 3, 16 meters ahead of lane 1, 8 meters ahead of lane 2. And while it all sounds pretty straightforward, and it is, it's also confusing to the athletes, right? Can be, because you look up and go, why is he or she ahead of me? Why do they have a head start? And so again, it's something to work with your athletes on, and making sure that when they're in their lanes, that they stay in their lanes for anything less than 800 meters. 800 meter, depending on the track and the starters, generally will run around the first turn and then break in after the first turn. And again, it's something you practice, because athletes then can cut in from any outside lane towards lane 1, which is where they need to be coached to be, as long as they don't trip or run into somebody else. Obviously, you have to give space enough for other athletes when you're doing that. As we were talking about, races less than 100 meters are not standard USATF events. So they're events that Special Olympics define, and they're the developmental events. I'm sorry, the lead-up events, excuse me. And it's generally a 25-meter and 50-meter walk dash. So in these cases, on your track, the finish line always remains constant. Finish line never changes. The starting line is going to change. So you as a coach will have to march in practice, walk off the distances of 25 meters and 50 meters for your practices for your athletes. Get athletes accustomed to a starter's pistol. Starter's pistols are used at the summer games. I have seen athletes come to the summer games that have not been accustomed to the starter's pistol, and when the gun fires, it startles them, and they stop and stand there for a second while the other athletes are running down the track. So it's imperative to you as a coach to get your athletes accustomed to a starter's pistol. All the field events are measured in meters, and athletes in the jumps, throws, and a shot put get 3 non-consecutive attempts. And what that means is, if I'm in an event with 2 other athletes, let's say it's the running long jump. I do my running long jump, then athlete number 2 does their running long jump, then athlete number 3 does their running long jump, and then we go back through the cycle again. And the distances on all of these in any of the field events, the distance that's turned in as a score is the one that has the best distance, the longest jump, the longest throw, the longest shot put. So again, it's not 3 consecutive. Rick doesn't throw 3 times in a row. And then Tommy throws 3 times in a row. It goes Rick, Tommy, Johnny, and then back over. So keep that in mind as you're orchestrating your local games or going through invitationals, that 3 non-consecutive attempts. Relay. Relay consists of 4 athletes exchanging a baton. We currently only do the 4x100 meter relay. Other states may offer 4x200, 4x400. We currently only compete in the 4x1. In that case, each athlete is running 100 meters. So, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the more specifics of that. But just so you know, it's 4 athletes each who run 100 meters. Teach your athletes to be ready at the start when the gun goes off, or when the starter starts the race. And in some cases, it may be done with a flag if you don't have a starter's pistol before you get there and practice and stuff. But also teach them run through the finish line. I've been in events before where athletes will slow down or stop before they reach the finish line, and in doing so end up losing out on the place that they were currently in. So again, these are coaching techniques that need to be gone over with each week. Be ready when the start goes off, and don't stop until you pass the finish line on your runs. Key specific rules. So around just athletic or Special Olympics in general, but also with athletics, athletes should not be left alone with a non-certified coach or a non-registered volunteer. Everybody should know that, and certainly make sure that the day of any events that you're hosting, invitationals or local games, everybody must present a driver's license, or excuse me, a photo ID when signing in. And then athletes participating in sanctioned events must wear the appropriate attire. No jeans, no Bermuda shorts. No matter how many you tell no matter how much you tell your athletes about those things, they have a tendency not always to remember. I took a team to the state meet, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Certainly went over the attire that the athletes needed to pack, and handed out a checklist, and specifically said, gym shorts, running shorts, whatever it may be. So we get up Saturday morning to go down to breakfast before we go over to the track to participate or compete. And one of my athletes comes down in his khaki shorts. I'm going, hey, where are your running shorts? Well, this is all I brought, coach. So we had to make a quick run to a Walmart and pick up things. But again, it's, one of the things that sometimes, no matter how many times you tell them, there's always 1 or 2 that you have to address in a different way. Special Olympic rules. So there's only one standard USATF event that Special Olympics modifies, and that's the running long jump. In this case, this is this is traditional 2-meter launch point on a running long jump for high school, college, professional athletes. They got to be able to jump 2 meters to hit the sand pit. Well, let's do this. What the modification in Special Olympics is 1 meter. So you as a coach, and this is where this is white coach's tape. If you've never used it before, it's fantastic for doing this kind of thing. You've got to measure it off and put down the launch point for Special Olympic athletes. So, and then you've got to work with your athlete on training, because now the athlete's coming down and he's got 2 visible marks on the path here that before they jump, that they've got to get accustomed to running past this one and making sure they jump before they step over this one. Again, it's part of your training, but again, white coach's tape works wonderfully. Duct tape would work too, but good visual for white to be used. And then again, it's 1 meter out from the pit. Race walk, particular rules, participants must have 1 foot in contact with the ground at all times. Running or jogging will cause a disqualification. Sounds easy again, but we're all competitors, right? And so I've had my athletes from my team at the summer games, when you get behind, nobody likes to be in second place. And so, they do a little jogging and try to catch up. And of course, resulted in a disqualification. Again, work with your athletes and walking. It is a walk, 1 foot on the ground at all time. Assisted walk, it's done with a cane, a walker, crutches. It is not assisted by another person. So if you got an athlete doing a 10-meter assisted walk, make sure that they are with, not with another person helping them. Wheelchair events, there's some great wheelchair events in the developmental. It's in the resource guide to talk through. There is an obstacle course and a slalom, and it'll give you the breakdown of how to lay that out for wheelchair athletes. And the wheelchair athletes can be a motorized wheelchair or in a manually propelled wheelchair. Here's a track. This is what we were talking about earlier. So this is a standard 400-meter track. And again, this inside lane is 400 meters long. You step out into this lane, and if you stay in this lane the entire way, you're running 408 meters and so on. Like I had mentioned, it's 8 meters longer each time you go out of the lane. What you're looking at are staggered starts. So this would be the 400-meter dash start here, lane 2, lane 3, lane 4, and you can see how it could be confusing to an athlete because now it looks like their competitors have an advantage, a head start. And so again, it's something you work on teaching your athletes and having them understand. And again, they have to stay in their lanes the entire way around. This is a 200-meter start, similar thing, 4-meter difference because it's only half a lap, 200 meters. But you can see what happens if an athlete starts in lane 2, cuts over into lane 1 anytime going around the track, he's actually running, or she is actually running less than 400 meters. So that will cause a disqualification. So again, work with your athletes on these events, stay in their lanes all the way around. As we mentioned, starting lines change on the different events. So the finish line is always right here. Starting line for the 100 meters is down here. 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters. This is a 1,500-meter start line. But as a coach, if you're running an event or in practice from the finish line, you've got to walk off 25 meters, actually 10 meters. If you have 10-meter assisted walk athletes, 25, 50 meters. And again, another good use for the white coach's tape. You're going to lay down your starting line on the track, right? There's got to be a visible line for the athletes to line up to start their events. So again, measuring these distances in practice and in your local games or or invitationals is important to have those things with you. So again, this is just visual look at, here's the staggered start for the 200 meters. You can see going out lane 2, 3, and 4, how much further out they are. But again, athletes need to stay in their lane the whole way around. One of the more challenging things that athletes have, and I've seen it over and over and over again, when they come around the track, you have all of these kind of lines. And this is for generally 110-meter hurdles events down here, and maybe depending on a track, some of the hundreds down in this area too. But as an athlete is coming around, there's all kinds of confusion about which lane am I to stay in? Because he's got all these lines now crisscrossing other lines. And again, it's a lot more difficult than you think for athletes to make sure they're staying in the right lane. Because again, if you're in lane 3 and you get confused about which lane this is supposed to go with, and you end up in lane 2, that will be a disqualification. Years ago, we used to run qualifiers for the state meet. And a qualifier was where we'd have like an invitational, and the times and distances from the qualifier would be used to create the heats for people at the state meets. One of the tracks we did, and I can't remember where it was, but there was so much confusion. The 100-meter dash was down here, and the athletes were having a terrible time of staying in their lanes on the 100-meter dash. We actually had to tape cones down where these dotted lines were, so it was a visual representation for the athletes to be able to identify where they needed to be. But again, something that you will see as you're in practice and working with your athletes on to get them accustomed to that, because it's important and it's not as easy as you may think. Relay exchange zones. So on a 400-meter relay, you have these triangles on the track. This is where the baton can be exchanged between the athlete that's running this leg, handing off to now the athlete that's going to run this leg. The exchange of the baton has to happen in between these diamonds. If the baton is exchanged prior to, if the baton is exchanged post this diamond, that's a disqualification. So it's important, again, if you have a 100-meter relay team, to practice making exchanges in this area. One of the things that is very interesting, and you guys will see if you got a 4x100-meter relay team, athletes actually can stand outside of this area and start running before they get the baton, as long as the baton is handed off in between these diamonds. One of the things you'll find challenging, and I would suggest practice over and over and over, is getting your athletes to move while the next athlete is running to them. Because if they don't move, there's going to be a collision, right? Athlete's coming at full speed, and he's going to run into an athlete that's just standing still right here. And that's not going to be a good baton exchange. So the thing, again, you'll see as you get into your athletes exchanging here, practice on how you get athletes moving before somebody who's running full speeds coming down and wants to hand the baton off to the next person, and this person's standing still. Not good, and you'll get through it. When an athlete exchanges the baton, and so he or she is done, they have to stay in their lane. They can't cross into another lane, because that team in the other lanes may still be yet to exchange a baton and could cause interference. If they step over and this team is just trying to get the baton and they run into each other, that also will be a disqualification for your team. So again, just the technical aspects of working on an exchange. Two different ways to exchange a baton. The first one, the no-look blind exchange. This is what traditional high school, college, professional athletes do. And it takes one heck of a lot of training to be able to, timing and training to be able to get this baton exchanged without the next runner even looking back to see where the baton is. What I recommend is what I call see the baton, take the baton. You can see where the athletes are looking back. I teach my athletes to watch the baton go into your hand before you grab it, turn, and run. There's a much higher chance that baton exchange is going to be successful than what I've found with this. Professional athletes have a hard time at times with making this type of exchange. So again, you'll see with your team, I teach and practice, and we do the see baton, take baton exchange route. One of the things that interesting story about the exchanges and athletes and what they do. So there was a coach up in Cabarrus County, Steve Bass, was a great guy. He's retired now. He was a great coach. I knew him for a number of years, and he was always a fun guy. He always had a very good 4x100 meter relay team, and they always did well at the state games. He coached them well. One year we got to the state games, he decided to change his order of his athletes, and he put his number one athlete to be the fourth athlete in the event. So instead of the number one athlete obviously taking off the starter's pistol, handing off to the number two athlete, he was now going to be the anchor leg of the 4x100 meter relay team. So gun went off, everybody, the competition's going, everybody doing well. Cabarrus County is actually leading coming into the exchange of the fourth runner. Fourth runner gets the baton and stands there. And he stands there because that's how he always started every race, when everybody was together. So they ended up winning, but it was, again, Steve changed the order. That athlete was always used to, hey, everybody running and starting at the same time. So the fact that they were winning, he was able to still get on. They still won, but it was always something I always kidded Steve about, was, making that change. And so your athletes get used to where they are as part of the baton exchange and or part of the relay team. So something just to think about. It was funny. It was good. It was good for a story. So the jumps. So you've got the running long jump and the standing long jump. The running and standing long jumps all have launch point where the jumps begin. Again, you get 3 consecutive attempts. Best distance goes. So this is the approach on a traditional running long jump. It's pretty long, and I've seen athletes come all the way back to the end here, and by the time they're running up here to make their jump, they're tired, they're winded because it's so darn long. What I would recommend, what I teach our athletes to do, is take a 10-step approach. So you walk 10 large steps off back to here. So you're starting here, so your speed is pretty good when you're making your jump. The jump on the running long jump, they cannot cross the end point of the launch point. So if their toe, if their foot, if any part of their foot goes over this line, that's a foul and will not be counted. So they've got to jump before they hit the end point of this part of the white line. The other part for measuring, the measuring of the jump starts at this end point of the launch point, and it's to wherever the closest point in the sand is. So if somebody jumps, if they take off from back in here, it doesn't matter that they've lost a foot or 2 feet of distance, because the measurement is always from here, regardless of where their jump starts. Where they land in the sand, the measurement is from, again, this end point to the closest point that they land in the sand to the runway. So if they jump and fall backwards, or their hand falls back and hits back here, their feet are up here, but their hand falls back here. Everybody okay? But their hand falls back to here, the measurement is to where their hand touches the ground. So teach your athletes, when they finish their jump, walk forward and out. Another state game story. Saw an athlete do a great running long jump, landed, out here somewhere in the pit. People started cheering for him. He turned around, put his arms up in the air, and walked this way back out. So the measurement was to where his foot was the closest to where the sand started. Wasn't where he landed, because he walked this way. He pretty much negated that entire jump. So again, teach your athletes, walk forward and out. Running long jump must be taken off of a single foot. The athlete can't come running down, stop, and then jump off of both feet. They've got to come down running and jump off of a single foot right here into the sand pit. Again, talked about where the measurements are from, closest to the point, teach athletes to walk through and out, stepping you on the launch point. Again, all the things I've already mentioned, it's considered a foul. So, if the athlete steps, all three of his jumps are beyond this point, all three will be fouled. In essence, he or she will score a 0 for the distance. So standing long jump stands at the very edge of the sand pit. All the way, you can get your toes all the way up to the edge of where the runway is. And then they jump off of both feet and land. It's the same concept as a running long jump, 3 non-consecutive jumps. The measurement is from the very edge of where the sand pit is to where the closest point they land. So again, teach your athletes walk forward and out, because if they turn around and walk back, if they fall back, the measurement will be very short. So standing long jump, very similar, except the launch point is, at the very end of the runway, and they have to jump off of both feet. High jump. High jump is part of the pentathlon. They're, again, same methodology, 3 non-consecutive attempts. Athlete must be able to do high jump at least a meter to start the height. If an athlete clears a particular height, then the bar is moved up. So they got to clear the bar without knocking it off the standards. And once they do that, then the bar is raised to whatever the next height is, and then they continue to jump. When they miss or knock the bar off 3 consecutive times, then that's when they are done, and the height of their jump is whatever the height was that they made it over successfully. 2 styles of jumping, Fosbury flop and a scissors kick. I would recommend, this is a pretty technical event. If you have an athlete wanting to do the pentathlon and wants to participate, obviously, in the high jump, get somebody from a local high school that's either a coach or does the high jump, and have them work with your athletes. Again, it's pretty technical, and it will help them. Let's see, talked about that. Athletes, athletes aren't permitted to dive over the crossbar. So, it's either scissors or Fosbury flop. So, again, as I mentioned, strongly recommend getting somebody from a local high school or a coach or somebody that's done it before in their past to help with your athletes. Throws, the shot put. Most technically difficult event, in my opinion. It is the event, in my opinion, that has the highest potential for injury. The shot put for the men, 8.8 pounds, shot put for women is 6.6 pounds. If this is not done properly and an athlete tries to throw this, they can easily damage the ligaments in their shoulder. And this is why, if you have someone that wants to do the shot put and you're not familiar with it, certainly get somebody from a local program that can help you. Again, this is a one that can cause an injury to an athlete the easiest in everything that we do. When I have officiated the local meets and stuff before, when we used to do invitationals or even still local games, I generally give a demo on how to do this before athletes do it, because I see a lot of athletes that come in and have never done this. They're coming out of a school, and God bless them, their teacher enters them in a shot put because they're a pretty big kid, and not done right certainly can hurt. And I have seen some athletes who haven't done it right, and I've stopped them from being able to continue on in competing in that event, because again, trying to protect them. There's a toe board in a shot put. That's what this is called. And an athlete generally, and I recommend a static approach, and I'll show a demo here in a second, a static approach where they're standing at the toe board and then just putting a shot exactly like this. And then traditional high school, college professionals will do a variety of different kind of momentum gains where they'll start at the back of the shot put and then come forward as part of the movement, or do a spin cycle and come up and throw it. Teach the athletes, just to stand in the method they use to put it from there. Shot put cannot come off the shoulder, and I'll show video on that in a second. But if it comes off the shoulder, then it's going to become a throw, and it will be count as a foul. And again, if it comes off the shoulder, no throwing it, that's where there's possible damage to somebody's shoulder. So again, recommend to teach the athletes to put the shot put from a standing position. Also, the athlete, the athletes need to always enter and exit from the back of the pit. So when they come in to do this event, teach them to come in from the back and do exit from the back. Stepping on or over the toe board will be counted as a foul. So, everything is static from here. And then the measurement is from the back point of this board to wherever the shot put lands. Not stops rolling, but lands. And generally it leaves a pretty good indentation out here, so it's easy to measure. But so that's all part of throwing a shot put. Be very careful. Make sure your athletes are trained well if you go down the shot put path. Let me pull out of this and let's see if I do this right. This is a video. This is actually Philip Blount from Mecklenburg County. Philip has been selected to participate in the World Games this summer in Germany, in Berlin, and he's doing a shot put. And this is an example of him doing a shot put. So I'll stop it here. The shot put goes up against the neck, and that's where it stays. If this hand comes down off of the neck or the shot put away, then it's considered a throw and considered a foul. And again, trying to throw an 8.8 pound piece of metal can be detrimental to somebody's shoulder. One more time. So much of the strength, again, you guys, if you get a high school coach or somebody to help you with this, so much of the strength of this is coming from the leg. That's why I teach people to put this arm up, because this drives the shot put to go out this way, dropping down. And when he drives through and turns his hips, he's pushing all off of his legs to get a maximum distance. Oops. Sorry. I guess everybody got that now, since I was showing things before that nobody saw. Did everybody see that? Is that affirmative? Everybody see this again?
Yes.
All right. I want to make sure that I got everybody. Get this out of the way. Not. Bear with me. Well, that's it. Well, I'm messing this up. All right. Mini jab. Everybody see it? Mini jab, more of a new event. It's in the traditional line. If you have an athlete that can't throw the shot put or do the running long jump, mini jab is a great example for them. It's coming up and throwing like a javelin off of the back shoulder and coming through. and then face forward. And the measurement on the mini jab has got to land on a tip. You know, they can't throw a flat mini jab and it lands flat on the ground. It's where the tip hits. And the measurement on this is from where the throwing line is to where the tip of the mini jab hits when it first strikes the ground. Softball and tennis ball throws, any type of throw can be done overhand, underhand. Athletes can run up to the throw line and throw, or they can stand in front of the throw line and throw, whatever the athlete is comfortable with. If the ball lands outside of the throw zone, it counts as a foul. If an athlete steps across the line, throwing line, it counts from a foul, and the measurement is taken from the edge of the line where the throw is done to where the ball strikes, not where the ball stops rolling. It's to where the ball strikes the ground. So in the event that you're measuring on the softball and tennis ball throws, you need people out in the field that are going to be reasonably close enough to identify where the ball strikes the ground when it first hits. Which reminds me, on the shot put, let me back it up here. Make sure that any spectators you have are behind the athlete when they're doing the shot put. I have seen athletes throw the shot put way out of bounds to either side. And you certainly don't want to injure anybody with an 8 or 6 pound piece of metal coming at them that somebody has just did the shot put on. So always, especially in a local events, you know, the coach's family want to stand out here and make sure they're behind them. It's a safety thing. I forgot to mention that. Coaches resources, again, this is where you can get specifics on the USA track and field rules, which we pretty much abide by. You also can go to sonc.net. We looked at the resources earlier. SONC or SOI, excuse me, Coach's Quick Guide is what Andrea was talking about. So take a look at those things for anything. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel in what you're doing. They can help you schedule practices, help you give you ideas, help you give you some workouts, some stretching moves. So all great resources to help you put your programs together. And finally, you know, if you need to reach me, you can get a hold of me at rgemmerth@AOL or rgemmerth@gmail. Either one will get you to me. And there's my cell number. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Anything that comes up during your training, during your events, during your meets, please feel free to reach out with anything that I may be able to provide some guidance. And I'm looking forward to running into you guys at the Summer Games. Unfortunately, I'm not available for the in-person training that's coming up. Love to always to meet people directly and then go through the in-person stuff. But the in-person training, and I'll help set up that, just an FYI, will be based at a track, and you'll walk through the specifics of some of the events we went through. You'll see an exchange zone, you'll see the start-finish line, you'll see the staggered starts, and so it should put a more of a frame of reference around the things that I went over virtually today. So I've rambled for, gosh, an hour and a half. Questions? Is anybody awake? I should ask that first.
Yes, I do want to know when is the in-person training going to be?
For the western side of the state, it is March 11th up in Boone. For the eastern side of the state in Greenville, it is March 4th. And I'm not sure the location of that. I'm not sure the specific locations of those at this point in time.
I know the one in Boone is at the Watauga Center. I can look it up. Janae sent it to me a couple weeks ago, but I know it's at a sports complex in Watauga County, but I do not know about the eastern one.
Thank you, Emily.
Watauga County Parks and Recreation Department, or the one in Boone.
And yeah, I was gonna say, if anybody has any questions related to Unified Track 2, I'm here to answer those as well.
Gosh, I know it wasn't that good. No questions.
For Unified, the partners that I'm supposed to have, I have to match that correct, but I know before when we were talking about like what events we were gonna have, I didn't know that walking was a part of that.
Yeah, so I actually need to check with Nathan on that. I think he went over more of like just for summer stuff. So for Unified, we just have the 100 meter, 200, 300, 400, and then the 2 field events.
Yeah,
But-
running, long jump, and shot put, right?
Yeah. Sorry, my dog is being loud. But I think that for some you are able to have like walking and wheelchairs too.
Okay, thank you.
But those, it will probably depend on like the division you put them in as well.
Okay,
But yeah, I'll check with that and I'll email you tomorrow on that.
okay. It's a question in the chat.
Yeah, Rick, it says, how do you decide how to put a relay team together?
That's a great question. You know, you will find, well, let's back up. So first of all, the relay team's got to be all athletes from the traditional side of the categories. And you find, what I'd like to do is see the athletes, and honestly, that have the best time in a 100-meter dash. And you take your top 4 and then go from there. And last year we were fortunate enough in the state games, I actually had enough athletes to have 2 4x100 meter relay teams. And again, they get divisioned by their times. So one was a little slower than the other group, and they were in a different heat than the number 1 team. And so, but you know, if you're blessed to have 8 athletes that are capable thereof, then you can run 2 teams. Other than, you know, it's pretty much take your 4 top athletes, and you can have an alternate. So you can actually have 5 in case obviously somebody gets hurt, sick, whatever. The biggest part about the 4x100 meter relay is, and you'll see, having the person that's about to get the baton be moving, because the other person running with the baton is running at full speed, and they can't be standing flat-footed to take the baton, because there will be a collision. Somebody will fall down, the baton will go flying. All fun things for you to experience. Anything else? If not, I think that should be it.
Yeah, I have someone who wants me to explain like the unified side of that. So yeah, for that, you're basically going to pick 2 of your athletes and then 2 of your unified partners to participate with that. Again, you can base that on like their skill set for sure. See who works well. And that's how you kind of partner up the athletes with their unified partner.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck. Let me know if I can help in any way.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick, are we going back to the main one or are we just ending it from here?
I think we're done.
Okay, sweet. Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
All right. Thanks, Haley. Bye-bye.